Okay, Baruch Hashem. I want to make sure because in previous years we were studying the Rashis at the beginning of Parashas Noach. So I want to make sure we do the Rashis first at the end of Parashas Noach. And then if we have time, we'll go back to the beginning. Baruch Hashem. Let's go to chapter 11, Pasuk Chaf Vav. As we're talking about Terach and Avram and the entrance of Avram into the world for the first time. So it says, Vayechi Terach Shivim Shana. Terach lived 70 years. And when he was 70, Vayoed at Avram. He gave birth to Avram at Nahor at Haran. So Terach has 3 children. This is going to be the birth of humanity, of bringing light to the world. He gives birth to Avram, Nahor, and Haran. And so now is where it's going to get a little bit tricky. It says, the Elah told us Terach. This is the lineage of Terach. Terach Olid at Avram. Terach gave birth to Avram at Nahor, at Haran. Haran Olid at Lot. So Terach gave birth to Avram, Nahor, and Haran. And Haran gave birth to Lot, and we need to know who Lot is, because Lot is going to be accompanying Avram on his pilgrimage or on his spiritual journey. Because what happens is, Vayamas Haran al Pnei Terach Aviv. Haran dies al Pnei Terach Aviv. It's a strange phrase. We have to see what that means. Be'eretz Molato be'or kasdim. In the land of his birthplace, in Or Kasdim. So let's see what Rashi says about this. Chapter 11, verse 28. Vayamas Haran al Pnei Terach Aviv. It's an unusual expression, and Rashi tells us it means B'chayei Aviv, that Haran died while Terach's father was still alive. So why do we care? Why is that even relevant? Why do we care that Terach was still alive while Haran died? So that's why there's a Rashi here that tells us something which became a legendary Rashi, that it was often taught to children when they were young, because I feel like the Rashis at the beginning of the Torah get a lot more study, because it's right after Rosh Hashanah and Simchas Torah, so everybody's all into studying. Then when you get to the summer months, the schools are out, and it's a little bit, people are losing their energy by then. Chas v'shalom, but that's really what happens. So this is the beginning of the Zman. So all the kids know this Rashi. What's the Rashi? Rashi says, Shayidei Aviv Meis. That it means that he died through his father. That Haran died through his father. Shekabal Terach al Avram beno. Terach denounced Avram his son, B'fnei Nimrod. Terach went to Nimrod and said that my son Avram smashed all the idols. Al Shalkitit et Slamat. He smashed his idols. This is nowhere in the Torah. There's nowhere it says this in the text of the Torah. It never once says this. This is the Midrash. But Rashi makes this Midrash famous. And the reason why Rashi has to say that, one of the reasons why this Midrash is needed, every Midrash is derived from the text, meaning from a gap in the text. Every Midrash is derived from a gap in the text. There's no Midrash that is not coming to answer a question from the text. The question is, why is Avram selected? There's nothing that the Torah tells us about Avram that makes him be selected. God says to Avram, Lech lecha, you go. But he doesn't tell us anything about why Avram was selected. Nothing in the Torah. Noach was tzaddik. Moshe, we have origin stories about him. David, we have origin stories. We don't have anything about Avram. Nothing. So that's why the Midrash tries to fill this gap by telling us that actually there was an incident in Avram's life that made him worthy to be called upon by God. And what was that incident? that Avram recognized that his father Terach was worshiping idolatry. And so Terach had to denounce Avram, his son. Rambam says that Avram realized this through spiritual and philosophical contemplation. And then he went out on the streets and was teaching about the unity of God. Again, totally absent from the text. So what does the Rashi say? Let's read the Rashi.
About
Yes.
just sharpen the question. Rashi somewhere else says we don't know where this Ur Kasdim is, the furnace of the Chaldeans, and so and we mention it every morning in Vayivarach David, and also Ani Hashem Elokim Asher Hotzaticha Me'Ur Kasdim. So that's like that sharpens the question you just said about the gap, and so that this midrash answers that question about the furnace. I believe
I
because
mean, it's possible, but it's I mean, let's just say that it's
no, I'm
I,
saying that, to support your idea. So verse 28 ends with the words or kasdim.
right. So the idea that Or Kasdim is a fiery furnace is a little bit of a stretch, but okay. That's what that also contributes to the idea. But the real, I think, origin of that is taken from the book of Daniel, that we have a similar story in the book of Daniel, and that's inspiring or influencing the Midrash, clearly. We have a very similar story there. So let's read this story. So Terach denounced Avram in front of Nimrod. So therefore, Nimrod took Avram at this point, and he threw him into a fiery furnace. Here, grab a chumash, Yossi. Oh, so stark. You recovered from those eggs?
Yeah.
Okay, we're in chapter 11, pasuk Chav Ches, and the Haran Yoshev. So what happened was, do you know, Yossi, where in the Torah it says that Avram threw the idols of Nimrod of his father into the fire? It never says it in the Torah.
He smashed them.
It never says that in the Torah. It never says that in the Torah. Look at chapter 11, verse 28. That's like one of the snarky comments that people say. They say, go to a Jewish day school graduate and ask them to find you the pasuk that says that Avram smashed the idols of his father Terach, and they'll keep looking and they'll be shocked to learn it never ever appears in the Torah. It's just this Rashi, chapter 11, verse 28. I'll finish the Rashi because I'm reading it. That why does it say? Rashi's trying to answer the question. Why does it say on the face of Terach's father? It's because Haran died as a result of his father Terach's actions, because Terach was upset that Avram had smashed his own idols, and he complained about him to Nimrod to try to get Avram punished. So Nimrod threw Avram into the furnace, and as a consequence of that, Avram came out alive. And this reminds us of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah in the book of Daniel, where he threw them in and he came out alive. Okay, guys, come on in. We're chapter 11, verse 28. And so therefore, it's the same story. Ben remembers that from the book of Daniel, which you did when you finished the Tanakh. So it's a very similar story. So the Haran Yoshev, Haran was sitting there. He was the ultimate. You ever hear the expression sitting on the fence? This is where it comes from. Haran was sitting there, V'omer Blibo, and he said in his mind, as Avram was thrown into the fire, chapter 11, verse 28. You know the page, Jesse? Tell it. 60. He said, I'll ask you guys this question. Do you ever hear that Avram smashed the idols of his father? Do you know where that appears in the Torah? It's because it doesn't appear in the Torah. It's a midrash. Never appears in the Torah, but they often teach it as though it actually says in the Torah. It never appears in the Torah. It's in this Rashi that I'm reading. So Haran was sitting there and he said in his heart, Im Avram notzeach, then ani mishalo, ve'im Nimrod ani mishalo. So Haran said, listen, I'm sitting on the fence. I'm going to watch what's going on, what's playing out. If he'll be victorious. If Avram will be victorious, then I'll go into the fire. And if Nimrod will be victorious, then I'll worship the idols. So Avram went in, and Kshanito Avram, Amru lo Haran. So when Avram was saved, Haran said, Mishal miata, who are you with? So they said to Haran, who are you with? So Haran said, Amram Haran, Mishal Avram, I'm with Avram. So they threw him into the fire, Vinisra. And now, as Rabbi Yosef said, Vizel or Kazdim. This is alluded to by the name or Kazdim, which means the fire of Chaldea. So the Midrash is answering two questions. The Midrash is actually answering three questions. One question is, why does it say that Haran died on the face of his father Terach? Well, that's because his father got him killed, because his father reported Avram to Nimrod for breaking his idols. And then when Avram went into the fiery furnace and came out okay, Haran tried the same trick, but it didn't work. That's one thing. A second thing it needs to tell us is why specifically or Kazdim, and that's because, as Rabbi Yosef said, it alludes to that it comes from the fiery place, the place of fire, because it alludes to this fire that Avram survived. And finally, the deeper question, the ultimate question, which the Midrash wants to address is, why was Avram selected? What did he do to be worthy to be selected? It didn't seem from our text of the Torah, that he did anything. Like he did nothing. Comes along the Midrash and says, no, as a child, he was a activist for God. But that's the Midrash, and that's Rashi, but it's never in the text of the Torah. Any questions about that, Boaz? You got it, Norai? So Menachem Piresh, Menachem defined the word or. This is different than Rashi as a bika, as a valley. V'chein ba'urim kavdu Hashem. V'chein murat tzfoni. Kol chor ubeka amok. Any hole or deep valley is called an or. Okay, what's the next pasuk? Who wants to read pasuk chaftet? Boaz, your turn. You have it?
Yeah.
Okay, go on. By the way, I just want to say that to everybody who's joining, so we'll be here in the morning, God willing, but then I'm traveling, so I'm not going to do the Rashi study, and we won't meet here in the yeshiva until hopefully the earliest we can meet is hopefully we'll meet on Wednesday afternoon, a week from today. But as I'm scheduled to return Wednesday morning from the Holy Land. Okay, so Pasuk, Boaz, please read. You read beautifully. You can also be the chazan tomorrow morning. You should learn the nosach. Okay, Avram v'Nachor. So they took Avram and Nachor took wives for themselves. Go on. The name of Abraham's wife was Sarai. And Nachor's wife's name was Milcah. Bas Haran. Okay, so it's always confusing. So Avram takes as his Veikach Avram v'Nachor. They both took wives, Avram and Nachor, because Haran is dead, and Haran fathered Lot. So Lot is going to tag along. But for now, Avram and Nachor take wives. Avram's wife's name is Sarai, and Nachor's name is Milcah. We have to remember who she is. But Milcah's wife seems to be also the daughter of Haran, because Haran is so Nachor married Haran's daughter. He married his niece. Is that allowed by Jewish law? You're allowed to marry your niece? What? Yeah, so the Gemara says you should marry your niece, even though we don't do that anymore. But although actually, when I first was the rabbi at Oev, there was a man there, a very prominent member of the synagogue, who was married to his niece, and it was a second marriage for him. So it ended up in a big litigation. By the way, the two families got very upset with each other, and also Nechama Leibowitz married her uncle. Nechama Leibowitz married her uncle. No, Nechama Leibowitz. What?
You don't think someone?
Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Ariel Sharon was the prime minister. He married his wife, and then after she died, he married her sister. And rumor is that, whatever, I don't want to talk about rumors. There's no point. And then, but I want to say, so you're allowed to marry your niece, but what about, can a man marry his aunt? No, that's not allowed. So uncle can marry his niece, but a boy cannot marry his aunt. That's what the Torah says. It's just from the Torah. The Torah gives us the laws. It doesn't tell us why.
Except for Amram, but that was before the Torah was given.
So Rabbi Yosef pointing out that Moshe's that Amram married his aunt. Moshe's father and mother were nephew and aunt. But that was before the Torah was given. All sorts of things happened before the Torah was given. Okay, so the name of Avram, so Avram married Sarai, and Nahor married Haran's daughter, who was Avi Milcah, Vavi Yiska. So Haran was the father of Milcah and Yiska, but Haran died. But now, who was Yiska? Who is Yiska? Look at Rashi. Yiska, we know, is, okay, Rashi. Who wants to read the Rashi? Who's volunteering? Okay, Yossi, your turn.
Zosara.
Zosara. So Yiska is Sarah. So now we have the story. We have the family tree. Haran is the brother of Nahor and Avram, and he has 3 children. He has Lot, who basically Avram adopts, comes with Avram, and he has Milcah and Yiska. Milcah marries Nahor, and Yiska marries Avram. Yiska is another name for Sarah, Rashi
The
says.
2 brothers married the 2 sisters.
2 brothers married their 2 sisters who were their nieces. What could go wrong? What could go wrong under that circumstance? Colby, come on in, my friend. Come close. So continue with the Rashi. He married Sarai, who was another, Yiska was another name for Sarai. Why? So if her name is Sarai, if Yiska, why do they call her, if her name is Sarai, why do they call her Yiska? Why are you so far away, Colby?
I don't know. I kind of like this.
No. Come right here next to Yossi. Come right here, right next to Yossi.
No.
Did you leave before the eggs were made this morning?
I had some good salty eggs for you.
They were so solid. They were the best. By the way, I was able to write the Torah so rapidly this morning, and I think it's because I never ever eat breakfast. I usually don't eat till like 11 or 12, but this morning I ate the eggs, and I was like, wow, I had so much energy. Did you put like caffeine in there?
No, just
You-
salt.
You didn't put any special powder, special love. Yeah, I felt it. Okay,
It's
fine.
biz.
Go on. Al Shem Shesachta Beruach HaKodesh. Why? Go on, Yossi. Why was he called Yiska? Why was she called Yiska? Shesachta Beruach HaKodesh. Because she saw with Ruach HaKodesh through divine inspiration. And number 2, the second reason,
Visha Kol Sochin Sheyit.
Biyafya. And because everybody was gazing at her beauty. So Sarai was very beautiful. How do we know that? We know that because everywhere they went, they tried to kidnap her. You had to pass her off as a sister. But everybody would gaze at her beauty, but also Shesachta Beruach HaKodesh, that she had divine Ruach HaKodesh. So there's 3 things. There's Nivuah. What's Nivuah? Prophecy. There's Ruach HaKodesh, and there's a bat kol. What's the difference between Nivuah, prophecy, and Ruach HaKodesh?
Balko is like I never.
Bat kol is a voice coming out from heaven. Some say it's called a bat kol, a daughter of a kol, as opposed to a ben kol, to say it's maybe a little bit more distant. So the 3 levels, these are 3 levels of divine inspiration or insight into God. The highest level of all is Nivuah, prophecy. And even within prophecy, there are multiple levels. The highest level of prophecy is Moshe Rabbeinu's prophecy, where he's able to speak to God face to face. But only Moshe was like that. Everybody else got the prophecy while they were sleeping, according to my Maimonides, in the middle of the night. And this, hold on, yeah, you had a question, Ari?
What's the difference between how Moshe talked to Hashem and how Adam
So according to Maimonides, you're asking a great question, and I can only give you Maimonides' answer. You, my, scientific answer. I can just give you Maimonides' answer, which is that the prophecy of Moses, of Moshe Rabbeinu, was on a higher level than everybody else. That's why the Torah says specifically that he spoke to God face to face. Nobody else had the ability. Only Moshe Rabbeinu could speak to God when he was awake. Everybody else, what? So that's a question. We don't really know. What does it mean face to face? But according to Maimonides, it means he had the highest level of understanding. He could speak to God even when he was awake. Hold on. Whereas every other prophet could only speak to God while they were in a dream and sleeping. And the prophecy therefore need to be interpreted, and they can interpret it in the wrong manner. So that's the major
Or
distinction.
daydreaming.
Or
I believe.
daydreaming. They were in a trance while they were in a trance.
Yeah, that's what one of my teachers taught me, that
In a
that's
trance.
that's
Yes.
what Rambam says.
Kobe, yes. Kobe, yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
So speak loudly.
I said that's interesting, but why doesn't the science why does that make sense with a lot of what we talk about?
Science?
Yeah,
No, I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I have no way of knowing the difference because I've never a prophet. So the when you're in the realm of spiritual, there are people who try to figure out the science of spirituality, and there are people who write about it, and what can you get, the different visions. Some people try to get there through hallucinogenic substances and through like things that I very, very strongly recommend that you do not experiment with. Things like LSD, like places which can take you on like mystical visions and trances. But there is a science of spirituality, but I'm just not an expert in it. If you want to read about it, there is a great book that's a classic book, very old book called The Varieties of Religious Experience by William James, and he talks about the different ways of achieving an understanding of God, and one is like the white light, that you have this trance like moment. It's like a euphoric moment where you have an awareness of God. I did have that once in my life, but I'm not going to go into it now. I did have just that one moment in my life where I just felt like I had a vision of Hashem, but I'm not going to talk about it now. It's a very personal moment, and I was much younger. But when you get older, you have different appreciation, different ways of accessing God, unless you're using substances, which I can't really talk to, but people use them and then they claim it. But it's also that what they don't tell you is that the brain gets fried and they end up like finished as human beings. It's very dangerous to be a prophet. And the prophets in the Torah did not get there through substances. They got there through deep meditation. And even deep meditation is extremely dangerous. You're putting yourself into a trance-like setting. If you want to read, like Aryeh Kaplan talks about in his books about how you can, achieve this type of deep spirituality through this like trance-like meditation, which is very dangerous. You can really hurt yourself. I'm not recommending that unless you're ready for it. You have to build up to deep meditation. When you think about like hypnotizing people is illegal in some places. It's mind control. I think I don't know where if it's illegal in DC, but I know like in Israel, I was just with a mentalist, and the mentalist said, "Oh yeah, it's illegal to hypnotize. He's not allowed to hypnotize people." Okay. Anyway,
Rabbi, this is one of my favorite topics of all time. So
what is?
The idea of prophecy and Ruach HaKodesh. So,
Oh.
two things that are positive. One is that Pinchas ben Yair, his famous Braita, which is the opening of Mesat Sharim, talks about reaching Ruach HaKodesh through I think it's like 20 steps or something like that. And so, but none of them include any of these illegal substances. And also the Gemara says that Ruach HaKodesh is 1/60th of Nevuah. And the other thing is that the idea of Ruach HaKodesh is that and Nevuah is that the Gemara says very clearly that after the temple was destroyed, people can have nevuah and can have Ruach HaKodesh, but they don't know how to discern which is the actual direct message and which is just a foolish imagination in
That's
their
what the
mind.
Talmud
So, like,
says. Talmud says, the Talmud's a very shkoyach, Rabbi Yosef. The Talmud says that that after the temple was destroyed, prophecy was given over to the fools. Mishachar Beis Hamikdash Avra Nevuah Matipshim, and it was given over to the fools. So that's what Rabbi Yosef is teaching us, that there was a level and understanding of prophecy before the temple was destroyed. But nowadays the rabbis are saying, don't do it. We don't know how to do it. And the people who it's not a Jewish approach now today to try and become a prophet. So it's not what we want to do today. We don't want to be like that person who goes into trances and tries to get insight into God that way. We don't think it's safe. We don't think it's not spiritually safe, not just physically unsafe, just spiritually unsafe. We don't think the ideas you'll get from there are going to be productive to your spiritual life. So, and you think about the people who do that, these are not people, generally speaking, who you want to be around. They like weird you out, right? Like they weird you out. Like they don't look like they're healthy. Okay, so that's prophecy. Ruach HaKodesh is something else. Ruach HaKodesh is a lower level. That's like divine inspiration. That's just maybe you don't even need to go into a trance. You have this idea and you attribute it to Ruach HaKodesh. And basically, she had divine inspiration. That could be even something like maybe I don't know if I want to say something radical. Maybe Herzl even had Ruach HaKodesh when he had this idea of this Jewish state. He had this idea of a Jewish state. Where has he come up with that idea? In Austria in the 19th century. How can he realize the Jews didn't have a state for 2,000 years? He said, yeah, we're going to convince the world to make a Jewish state. How much problems he caused for the world. They would have nothing to write about in the newspaper if Herzl hadn't existed. There would be no news in the newspaper every single day. It was just Herzl brought it about with his, not Herzl, obviously Hashem, but it was like an idea that it was just like a transformative idea, Ruach HaKodesh idea. It's possible. So anyway, I don't know why we got.
Allow me one more comment because my mother will listen to this class tomorrow, Bezrat Hashem. At the moment that she became a grandmother, when my eldest was born, at 6 minutes to 11 on Shabbos morning, she was at the Kiddush in Rambam Bet Knesset, and she said to somebody standing next to her, "I feel like I just became a grandmother," and
Oh,
and it
beautiful.
was so it was Shabbos morning. We were in Yerushalayim, she was in Beersheba, and so the true story. So
Baruch Hashem. So those are ideas. Thank you. Those are ideas that are like Ruach HaKodesh. And the idea of Ruach HaKodesh is like something, inspiration from Hashem, but we don't know how to classify it. And then there's a Baal Kol, which is even lower, which is a heavenly voice. It doesn't even mean a heavenly voice. It means some kind of heavenly sign. Yes, Aryeh.
What would the Kohen Gadol's chest plate be then?
That's a very good question. The Kohen Gadol's Urim V'Tumim, that would be,
Is that like it's something?
well, first of all, it's a good question. Which way it would be classified? That was something that was open to a lot of interpretation. It was like an oracle, and it was limited to the Urim V'Tumim, and it was often misinterpreted. So we have to understand that. But yeah, it's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know which way we would classify that. That's a very geschmack question, Aryeh. Very geschmack. Okay, actually, we have to daven mincha now. Let us stop here to daven mincha.